A large-scale air attack took place within a single night, on a scale that cannot be ignored. Ukraine released official statements. Hundreds of aerial threats were reported. Most were claimed to have been intercepted. The figures appeared convincing. The graphics were clean. The narrative was clear. At the same time, visible damage emerged. Power outages, infrastructure disruption, urban impact. A reasonable question followed. If so many threats were intercepted, why were the consequences still significant? This is where many discussions end too early. In reality, this is where proper analysis begins. Because modern air warfare does not operate on binary outcomes, it operates through accumulation, through pressure, through probability. This strike was not improvised. It was not reactive. It was planned. Russia does not produce drones for immediate use. Production is continuous. Stockpiles are built. Assets are consolidated. When deployed, the objective is not a single target. It is the system itself. Launches occur from multiple locations, not to shock public opinion, but to complicate defensive response. This requires logistics, coordination, a functioning command structure. That fact matters because it demonstrates something fundamental. Russia has not lost its structural capacity. In a prolonged conflict, this matters more than short-term tactical outcomes. This strategy is often misunderstood. Many assume the goal is to destroy as many targets as possible. That assumption is incorrect. The primary objective is to overload defensive systems. In saturation doctrine, most threats are expected to fail. Low-cost drones trigger responses. Radar systems remain active. Operators work without pause. Every interception consumes resources. Every decision increases strain. Under these conditions, minor errors become more likely. Gaps emerge not because systems are weak, but because they are forced beyond sustainable rhythm. This is the intended effect, not perfection, but systemic fatigue. When Ukraine states that hundreds of targets were neutralized, the terminology must be understood accurately. Neutralized does not mean consequence-free. Targets may lose navigation, detonate prematurely, impact outside their intended aim point. From a military reporting perspective, this qualifies as success. Technically, this is valid. However, civilian perception often interprets such language as absolute, as though no secondary effects occurred. This creates a gap between military reporting and public expectation. Ukraine's statements are not entirely false, but they are incomplete. Air interceptions generate debris. Debris has mass. Gravity applies. When interceptions occur above populated areas, fragments reach the ground. Sometimes the damage is limited. Sometimes it is sufficient to disrupt power networks or trigger localized fires. Additionally, not every threat can be intercepted. In large-scale attacks, even high success rates leave residual penetration. A single drone reaching a power substation can darken an entire city. In this context, damage does not necessarily indicate defensive collapse. It reflects unavoidable limitations. Russia does not measure outcomes by interception statistics. It measures effects. Is energy distribution disrupted? Is logistics slowed? Is psychological pressure increased? If the answer is affirmative, the operation is considered successful. This aligns with long-term strategy, not a single night's result, but cumulative impact. Within this framework, Ukrainian interception claims remain part of the information domain, not the decisive metric. Ukraine's air defense functions. That is not in dispute, but it is expensive and finite. Every interception has a cost. Every intense night reduces stockpiles. Meanwhile, many incoming threats are comparatively inexpensive and numerous. This imbalance is not about technology quality. It is about sustainability. In the short term, Ukraine can absorb the pressure. Over time, this dynamic becomes increasingly challenging, not only militarily, but economically and politically. In modern conflict, communication is a battlefield. Ukraine must demonstrate resilience to domestic audiences, to international partners. Russia must demonstrate capacity to apply psychological pressure, to shape external perception. Both rely on numbers, on visuals, on selective framing. This does not render all statements false, but every statement has intent. Serious analysis exists outside these narratives. When all elements are combined, the picture becomes clearer. Russia sustained coordinated aerial pressure. Ukraine prevented catastrophic outcomes. There was no decisive victory. There was no total failure. What emerged was endurance competition. The central question remains endurance. Who can sustain pressure longer? This strike was not an endpoint, nor a decisive turning point. It was an indicator that air warfare has become systemic, not a contest of individual weapons, not a single night spectacle. As long as both sides retain capacity, this pattern will recur, with variations, with differing intensity. For observers, the lesson is straightforward. In modern warfare, numbers never stand alone. And visible damage does not automatically contradict official claims. What ultimately matters is not who speaks the loudest, but who can endure sustained pressure the longest. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more updates on military tech, global conflict, and defense strategies. This is Tapur Update, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.